Are you an experienced shooter looking to get the most out of your centerfire rifle?
Just off the plate.
Are you interested in getting into PRS or long-range target shooting? Have you just bought a new gun and want to stretch its legs? Have you got a weekend free and want to learn something new? Have you been trapped in the suburbs for too long and really need to get out to the bush? Are you in Perth on an international work visa and want a truly unique outback experience?
Firing white.
Are you a science nerd and want to put your knowledge of chemical rates of reaction and ballistics into practice? If one or more of these statements applies to you, have you considered trying Precision Shooting Australia's long-range shooting course?
40.5.
To attend the long-range course, you will need a centerfire rifle and a scope, ammunition. 120 to 150 rounds of the same load is recommended. You'll need to shoot the same load for the majority of the course, as we will be calibrating this load for the atmospheric conditions. Hearing protection, preferably electronic earmuffs. A comfortable shooting support, like a bipod or shooting bags. And a smartphone with the Applied Ballistics LLC app preloaded. Your smartphone is as important as your rifle and your scope, as we'll be using it to enter all our data and complete our calculations. The rifle I'm using is an ATA Turca in 243. It's an entry-level centerfire rifle that I've used for hunting for about 9 months now. It was certainly the least expensive rifle on the day, as most of the other course attendees were using Tickers and Lithgos. My scope is a Xerotech Vengeance 4-20 power. It's sort of an entry-level target scope, and it provided plenty of adjustment to get me out to a kilometre. 20 power is a great magnification for this sort of shooting, and we'll see why later in the video. As for ammunition, I'll be shooting Australian Outback by ADI. These have an 87 grain Hornady VMAX projectile. It's a fairly good target round, and it has done quite well on this course in the past. The calibration phase of this course will cover a little bit of load development theory, so if you want to bring some hand loads, feel free. However, you will need at least 120 rounds of the same load to complete the course. The Applied Ballistics LLC app is a really great tool for this kind of work. It will allow you to account for every single variable imaginable and give you a precise ballistic solution. But more on that later in the video. The long-range course is held at Billy Farm in Nungarran, in the heart of the Western Australian Wheatbelt, approximately 3.5 hours drive out of Perth. The drive alone can be quite enjoyable, taking us through fields of wheat and canola, as well as our iconic Wheatbelt bushland and lake systems. Most attendees prefer to drive themselves, and we go up in convoy. However, if you would prefer, transport can be arranged. All food and campsite accommodation is included in the course fee, and while most people who would be driving themselves have their own camping equipment, pop-up tents and mattresses are available at no extra cost. All meals are also included in your course fee, and the guides and Mel tend to put on a really good spread. Please let Trent know about any dietary preferences or requirements, and you'll be catered for accordingly. While the facilities at Billy Farm look a little bit rudimentary at first, they're actually quite comfortable and include everything you need. The site is equipped with both indoor and outdoor dining and food preparation areas, an enclosed shooting shed with a 100 metre range, and even has a flushing toilet and a hot shower. However, please be mindful that the only water source available at the moment is rainwater, and mains water isn't available just yet, so please be a bit considerate. The Beaton family are constantly adding to the facilities available at the farm, and since I'd been there last, Bill had extended the shooting shed and extended the veranda surrounding the indoor dining area. They've got lots of big plans, and it's exciting to think what they might do next. Now, as a bit of a disclaimer, while I haven't been directly paid to produce this video, I am actually a former employee of Beaton Firearms and Precision Shooting Australia, and I'm still closely associated with the company. I'd attended many training courses as an employee, but I never actually got a chance to practice all the skills taught. I've been wanting to produce a video like this for a long time now, and I quickly jumped at the opportunity to attend a course as an attendee, rather than a staff member. The first day of the course is all about calibration. We have to calibrate our scopes, we have to calibrate our ammunition, but first we must calibrate ourselves. Working through our marksmanship principles, we have to get comfortable, make sure that we're getting a clear sight picture, and work on our trigger pull and follow through. I found that my trigger control needed a bit of work, and Trent helped me with that.
Once you get used to it, you can speed that up. Your cadence doesn't have to...
As many target shooters will tell you, one of the most important aspects of target shooting is understanding how your scope works. Now, there's a great deal of theory that Zaine covers in this course, going into both how our scopes work and all the different angular measurement systems that we use. But for the sake of brevity, I'm going to skip all the theory and go straight into the practical part of this side of the course. To calibrate our scopes, we do what's called the tool target test. Now, the goal here is to make sure that our elevation dial on our scope is actually giving us the elevation values that we want, and that when our app tells us to dial on 12 mil of elevation, we're actually getting 12 mil and not 12.5 or 11.8. As the name suggests, the tool target test involves using a tall target. On the 100 metre range, we have 5 30cm targets stapled top to bottom. We shoot a small group at the bottom of the target with 0 elevation. We come up a nominal value of elevation, shoot another group, and compare the difference between our expected elevation correction and the actual distance between our two groups. Now, my Zerotech Vengeance scope measures a minute of angle, and after shooting my group at the bottom of the target, I came up 40 minute of angle, expecting a difference of 116 centimetres. My elevation adjustment was pretty good, and the correction factor was within 3%. After we've calculated this correction factor, it's important to test the tracking of our scopes by dialing our scope back down to 0 and shooting another group, and we must make sure that our scopes have actually returned to 0. If they haven't, we might have to start again. We must also calibrate our ammunition. Now, as we know, the speed at which a chemical reaction takes place is dependent on the temperature of the reactants. And so, your bullet's velocity will actually vary depending on the temperature of your powder. So our goal here is to calculate our powder burn rate. We do this using a magnetospeed chronograph strapped to the muzzle of your rifle. And we're going to shoot 2 strings of 5 shots each. One set of 5 has been kept on ice for a couple of hours, and the other set of 5 has been kept in hot water. After calculating our standard deviation and average velocities, it's quite clear that our velocities are 50 to 60 feet per second faster on the hot temperature velocities than the cold temperature velocities. And using this information, our app can actually calculate the muzzle velocity based upon the ambient temperature next time you're shooting.
That's pretty good. Yeah. Done? Yep.
So, we've calibrated our scopes, we've calibrated our ammunition, we've calibrated ourselves, and now it's time to take our shooting to the next level. I didn't film this next part of the course, as it's mostly just blokes sitting around eating food, talking rubbish, and playing on their phones. But I'll talk about how to set up a rifle profile in the Applied Ballistics LLC app at some point in the future. For now, the important thing is that we've set up the app with all of our preferences, entered the particulars on our rifle, including caliber, barrel length, twist rate, twist direction,
Good hit.
scope height,
Firing blue.
selected our bullet from the bullet library, entered a powder burn rate, and entered the particulars of our geographical location and atmospheric conditions. And now we're ready to start shooting. Just past the 100 metre targets, we have gongs set up at 200 and 415 metres. And while that 415 can be a little bit hard to see through the trees, you can definitely hear it when you hit it. And it sure is satisfying to hear that delayed report after hitting the target. The sun goes down, and daylight fades quickly in the Wheatbelt. And as we lock our guns away, we fire up the campfire, the barbecues, and the pizza oven, and we get stuck into a hearty meal. Mel puts together some fantastic cheese and antipasto platters, and Dave is just as skilled with the tongs as he is with a rifle. Their freshly cooked pizzas are absolutely to die for, and there's plenty to go around. It can be great getting to know our clients over a few beers, and more than a few firm friendships have been made around this campfire. Being so far away from suburbia, the night sky out here can be absolutely spectacular. And I'll often spend just a little bit of time sitting by myself watching the stars. This time, however, was just after a full moon, which gave me an opportunity to be a bit creative with a new lens. The second day's shooting all takes place at the other end of Billy Farm. And after a hot breakfast, we pack our vehicles and head down to the second shooting location. From here, we can see multiple targets set up at a wide variety of ranges and azimuth angles. This will allow us to properly observe the effect of wind on our projectiles, as well as, to a smaller extent, the Coriolis Effect. Learning to call the wind is one of the most difficult skills to master, and on some weekends, Billy Farm can give us quite a challenge, and we might have multiple wind currents and values to contend with. However, on this weekend, we had barely any wind to speak of.
Firing yellow. Yep. Firing blue. Yep. Got your hit.
Shooting into the dam bank directly east of our location, all shooters made quick work of the 320 metre target and were keen to spin around to the 640 metre target northeast of our location. For most of us, this target was the first real challenge we'd faced all weekend. At this distance, spin drift starts to come into effect, and is accounted for by our ballistic software. Spin drift, or gyroscopic drift, causes our bullets to drift slightly horizontally, in the same direction as our rifling twist. Most modern rifles have right-hand twist rifling, and due to spin drift, this will cause our bullets to appear to impact the target slightly right of our point of aim. The effect tends to be pretty minor, however, and it's all taken into account by our ballistic app.
Firing blue. Is that a hit? Firing blue.
All attendees were more than capable of hitting this target, myself shooting a 243 Winchester, and other attendees shooting 308s and 6.5 Creedmoors, but due to the recoil of my rifle, I found it a little bit hard to call my own shots, and I was completely reliant on Trent on the spotting scope to call out my corrections. I wouldn't exactly call a 243 Winchester a heavy recoiling cartridge, but at this distance it is just enough to throw me off the target. I've currently got my rifle in at Beaton's to get a muzzle brake fitted, and that should help a lot with taming what recoil this rifle has. For most people attending this course, it's all about that 1000 metre shot. And after we'd all had a good go at that 640 metre target, we turned our tables north to face our next targets. This shot is where all of our external ballistic factors will have the greatest effect on our bullet's trajectory. As I mentioned earlier, there wasn't a whole lot of wind for us to observe, but there was a little bit, and it did have an effect at this range. And by backing off the magnification of our scopes, we were able to see what the wind was doing at our targets by looking at the mirage and seeing whether the heat haze was boiling straight up or blowing to the left or right. For the purposes of observing the wind at these distances, extremely high magnification scopes aren't required and may actually be a hindrance. For this kind of shooting, most shooters will prefer a scope with a maximum zoom range of 20 to 25 power. And I think 20 power in my scope was just right. This particular shot is where the Coriolis effect will have the greatest impact on our bullet's trajectory. And, as we're in the southern hemisphere, our bullets will appear to veer off to the left when we're shooting directly north or south. This is all academic, however, as our ballistic app takes it all into account. probably important to point out that most of these target hits were by these two blokes, and I don't actually think I managed to hit the 1,000 metre target this time. I probably could have if I'd been prepared to burn a bit more ammo, but realistically, for a factory 243 rifle with a 24-inch barrel, a kilometre is probably about the limit of its capabilities, and certainly beyond my own. Most 6mm rifles that shoot this distance tend to have longer barrels, faster twist rates, and hand loads with longer, more aerodynamic projectiles. I was pretty happy with myself for hitting that 650 metre target, and now feel a bit more confident with my ability to hunt at longer ranges. The post-pandemic period has been a little bit rough on businesses like Precision Shooting Australia, and lately they have been doing a few less courses than they used to. So I was really grateful to be able to attend this one. Being able to attend this course as a trainee rather than a staff member gave me a whole new appreciation for this course that Trent and Zaine are putting together, and I really enjoyed learning some of these skills. I always enjoy my trips out to Billy Farm, and hopefully I'll be back out here soon, maybe even learning some new skills on their marksman course. Be sure to watch this space for that video. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye for now.